Well, thank you everyone for joining us and welcome to today's session on the 2024 Fringe Benefit Tax Season Compliance Updates. So my name is Charles Clark and I'm really excited to be joined today by our special guest, Navneet Multani. Now, Navneet is a content management analyst at Wolters Kluwer, Australia, and is therefore very well placed to give us guidance on the latest developments in all things fringe benefit tax. So for anyone who is unaware, Boma and Wolters Kluwer have actually been partners now for some years, and you'll find their CCHIQ content available to share to your audience via email, social, and your website in the Boma platform. So for now, it gives me great pleasure to hand over to Navneet.
Thank you, Charles. So we are going to cover a few topics today. This is basically the 2024 FBT update, any legislation and policy changes that will happen. So the agenda today, like is showing on the screen here, is any case updates, any legislation and policy updates, changes to FBT record keeping requirements. Then we'll move on to the key dates and what's on ATO's radar for 2024, and then any question and answers that you might have, and we'll take them up at the end of this session. So for legislation and policy updates, there have been basic changes in basically 4 topics this year. There is the electric vehicles, then there's some changes in car parking and how ATO views a broader definition of car parking fringe benefits. And in light of that, there have been some case updates for both car parking and also travel fringe benefits. And then we move on to the changes in FBT record keeping, which is also known as the adequate alternative records, and how ATO now views compliance matters in this relation. So our first topic is electric vehicles. So as most of us will be aware, electric vehicles are now exempt from FBT. This came in effect from 1 July 2022 for vehicles used or held on or after 1 July 2022. This measure became law just before Christmas 2023. It is subject to eligibility conditions, as you can see on your screen. So the car has to be a zero or low emission vehicle, and there has to be no luxury car tax paid on the vehicle on the importation or sales. In this context, normally questions come up about used electric vehicles and how to determine if there was any luxury car tax paid when it was first acquired. The ATO expects you to make reasonable efforts to find out if any luxury car tax was paid on a used car. This can be done by getting an independent valuation report, checking the registration details, or doing an internet search. As long as you've done reasonable research in finding out if any luxury car tax was paid, and if that was below the threshold for that particular year, you're good to go and you receive that FBT exemption. It is also worth noting that associated car expenses are exempt from FBT as well. So fuel expenses, electricity expenses, home charging expenses, anything that goes in operating the car and is associated with the car are also FBT exempt. So that is a good leeway to our next slide, which is PCG 2024/2. This is a very recent guideline that was released by the ATO in relation to ascertaining the cost of charging electric vehicles at home. So basically, this was recently finalized in February of this year, which is great. So it gives us some insights into how we can calculate the costs for the 2024 FBT year. It basically provides a shortcut method of $4.20 per kilometer for calculating attributable electricity costs when charging a vehicle at a residential premises. So if an employer provides an employee with an electric car, fully electric car, so this doesn't apply to plug-in hybrids, it only applies to fully 100% electric cars, and they charge the car at their home, and it's it comes as part of their electricity bill, and it's hard to segregate costs. This shortcut method can then be used by employers. So this works for both statutory formula method to include in the recipient contribution component, and also for operating cost method to include in electricity charging cost, both for operating cost and then the recipient contribution component. So it works both ways. This also has some income tax implications, which we won't discuss today since we're focusing on FBT. There's something worth noting here. If the employee owns the EV and there is a reimbursement for home charging expenses, that is not a car fringe benefit, that will be then categorized as an expense fringe benefit. There's some record or keeping required for this method to apply for substantiation purposes. So that will be your odometer readings, a logbook to demonstrate work-related use, which is very important, which is what ATO would really look at. And that's also on their radar, which we will discuss at a later stage today. And then one electricity bill over the FBT year to prove that the electric vehicle was charged at the residential premises, and to roughly work out what portion goes into charging in compared to the overall household cost. This will be very helpful for employers with the number of employees who charge their vehicles at home. There's also one other aspect of this. So if the employee can ascertain the actual cost of charging the vehicle, so it's not compiled in a household bill, it can actually be ascertained. They don't need to use the shortcut method. So if that is higher than the shortcut method calculation, ATO does not obligate taxpayers to use the shortcut method. So it's essentially what works better for the employer, and if the substantiation can be proved efficiently, it's up to the employer to exercise this shortcut method. Moving on to car parking fringe benefit. So the ATO recently finalized TR 2021/2, which is again bringing forward from previous year. Car parking is a very talked about topic every year. There's lots of questions around what sort of provision of parking will be classified as a car parking fringe benefit. So to provide further guidance and to assist employers with better compliance, this taxation ruling was released. It talks about special purpose car parks, which has been included in the expanded meaning of commercial car parks. So this special purpose car parks could be your hotels, hospitals, suburban car parkings, so anything within the 1 kilometer radius. And if the charge rate is $10, above $10.40, and if an employer provides that car park as a designated car parking spot for employee, then they are providing a car parking fringe benefit. So this just goes beyond your typical commercial car parks. It's just expanding the meaning of more car parks. But in saying that, the more important factor here is to look at if the car park is offered to general public, and if that's the case, then it's important for employers to ascertain if a designated spots are provided to certain employees. If that's the case, then car parking fringe benefit has been provided. So it's just about working on the circumstances and getting the conditions correct, and then ascertaining if an employer is actually providing a car parking fringe benefit. The Virgin Australia case that has been mentioned on the screen here just works around that scenario. So in that case, the staff members of Virgin Australia were parking in several airports, and the full federal court had to decide whether there was a primary place of employment, and on that basis, if a car parking fringe benefit was provided. The taxation ruling here doesn't give more guidance on this, and we do expect the ATO to provide further guidance on this. So you might hear about this in due course, but the ATO again stresses on working with the facts and the evidence, and then deciding if you're providing a car parking fringe benefit on self-assessment basis, and then working out your notionable taxable values. Moving on, there have been some case updates, like I mentioned in the agenda earlier. This is very important. These are two cases, one from 2015 and then one ongoing case, which is Bechtel Australia, and then how the facts of these two cases have changed how employers with FIFO employees assess their situations. So basically, in both these cases, the facts were very, very similar, but the verdicts that were handed down in relation to the reduction of gross taxable values on the basis of otherwise deductible rule as per section 52(1) of FBT was different than the John Holland case, which I'm guessing lots of us will be aware of. It was a very critical decision because it came down to the very minor details of the evidence that was provided in court. So John Holland case had very solid and perfect set of evidence that was provided because the facts were so similar and the decisions were different. Many taxpayers have questions in mind. So in saying that this appeal for Bechtel case, which was denied the otherwise deductible rule deduction, it was heard in the full federal court in November 2023, and it's still awaiting a decision. So it's something to look forward to. But in saying that, this is a good time for all the employers who have FIFO employees to look at their current control mechanisms and their strategic controls in place, and to this also is a good time to make robust record keeping, so that in future, if they're ever caught in the net of the ATO, they can learn from this and have enough evidence and set of facts ready to go. There has been no change to the current view of how the commissioner sees deductibility of travel expenses for FIFO workers. But in saying that, after the decision is handed down by the full federal court, we might expect some guidance from the ATO on this matter, and then be advised in due course. And moving on to alternative records, this is a measure that has not come into effect as yet. It starts from 1 April 2024, which is the 2024-2025 FBT year. It is important because it is a good time to collate the required information based on what we have on hand. So interestingly, these determinations just got finalized today. So, but while I was preparing these slides, it was still in a draft form, but they have been finalized today, as we expected to be finalized just before 1 April 2024. It gives employers a relief from compliance burdens in the way that some existing corporate records can be now used by employers as substantiation documents to finalize their FBT returns. Like I said, the 11 draft, not draft anymore, final legislative instruments have been provided by the ATO in form of guidance in terms of what they would consider adequate alternative records. These are available on the ATO's website, and I would like to show you the list of those topics, but it will be very time consuming for me to go through each one of them. So this is what the ATO considers the most relevant at the moment, and they finalized these 11 draft determinations. We do expect ATO to release further determinations as we go, because there's lots to cover there. There's lots of complexity that needs to be addressed, and employers need to be sure that they are presenting the right alternative records. So to sort of get an idea about this, there's an example that we can look at. So there's an example for travel diaries here. Joyride Limited sends their employee Tina overseas for 2 weeks. She's undertaking work for that duration of the travel. Joyride reimburses Tina for the costs of her flights and accommodation. Tina maintains a work calendar on Joyride Limited systems as a roster or as a timesheet or her time away traveling, and to log in for appointments and activities and what she did while she was away for the 2 weeks on business travel. She then uses this calendar to record all her business activities while she's overseas, and then submits it to the payroll department. In applying to receive the reimbursement, Tina gives Joyride's payroll department access to that work calendar for that period of the travel. So here we can see that all the necessary records of her travel have been logged in that calendar, and the ATO essentially is saying that from 1 April 2024, instead of obtaining a travel diary, which can then be another compliance cost for employers and can be sometimes tedious if there has been very frequent travel, Joyride Limited can rely on Section 123AA of the FBT and in accordance with now the finalised legislative instrument, can use Tina's work calendar, which has the required minimum information to be relied upon and will be considered as an adequate alternative record by the ATO. So this is just one example of travel diaries. The 11 topics that are currently on your screen have all been, the ATO has provided enough information for you to consider what will be the right document or the alternative document, corporate document, to be presented to the ATO in lieu of the declarations and travel diaries and other. Moving on, what's on the ATO's radar? There are a few topics every year that the ATO focuses on. This year, motor vehicles, one of the very important topics, have been raised by the ATO. They want employers to make sure that the private versus business use has been correctly identified and then submitted. As we discussed earlier, even for the electric vehicles shortcut method as per the new PCG, it is very important for the employers and employees to maintain correct logbooks. For employee contributions, there have been cases where reporting has been done in the wrong labels, and just because of that, the ATO has to then contact the employer, and then there's time that goes in going through that process. So they have really emphasized for employers to ensure that the labels that they use to report their FBT are the correct labels, and they make sure that the employee contributions are correctly applied. Another thing would be that the employee contributions do not reconcile in the FBT return and the income tax return. So because the due date for the income tax return falls a few months after the FBT returns, sometimes the ATO is picking up on those discrepancies and reaching back to the employer. So these are some general issues that the ATO will be looking at. And then the RFBAs have been a topic of concern as well. Again, the emission and the incorrect report amounts that have been reported have been an issue that the ATO want to address on an ongoing basis. So the payment summary that an employee receives after the end of financial year should correctly reflect the RFB amounts that have been listed in the FBT return of the employer. And then for consolidated groups, there has been emphasis on, again, one FBT return per employee. So in some cases, a consolidated group has been lodging only one FBT return. So even if there's a nil FBT return, or if they need to lodge a non-lodgement advice, the ATO reminds employers to make sure one FBT return is lodged for employer, even if they sit in a consolidated group or an MSc group. Always remember to identify the types of fringe benefits, calculate the correct taxable value, lodge on time, maintain appropriate records. They can't stress enough with the record keeping and the current emphasis that has been put on it, and how that saves employers valuable time in the long run. And then the final topic is the key date. This year it's pretty straightforward. It doesn't fall on a weekend. So the lodgement due date for self-preparers and tax agents lodging via paper is 21st of May. Employers registered with a tax agent lodging electronically. The due date is 25th of June 2024, both falling on a weekday. If an employer is not registered with a tax agent and would like to avail the deferred due date of 25th of June 2024, they must register with a tax agent before 21st of May. This is pretty standard, same as every year, and ensure that they're ready to go, you're ready to go, all information is collated in time and lodged before the due date to avoid any interest and penalties and further compliance costs. So this was pretty much the update for 2024, all the compliance updates going forward as the FBT year comes to an end and we all start preparing the FBT returns. I will now hand over to Charles again to show you how the FBT articles sit in the Boma library and how it works with Boma.
Thanks, Navneet. I just switch over. I thought I would just take a moment to show you very quickly where the Wolters Kluwer FBT updates sit in Boma. If I go from the dashboard into the content library, you can see here we've got all the content. This is obviously Australian specific, and there's a whole range of topics that you might like to investigate and send out to your audience via email, social media campaigns, or put on your blog on your website as a blog. I'm actually going to search down into the Wolters Kluwer Premium Library. And you can see here we've got all the different articles that they have. And then they've also put in, if I search for FBT, on the latest articles. And you can see as I go into this one on electric vehicles, I think, Navneet, you were talking about this as we went through. You can see a lot of the information here that you discussed. And now if I go back out into the main one, so this basically has a quick look at all the key changes that are upcoming. And you can see here we've got the full article. And so this can be put into an email or on your website as a blog. And then we've also got the social media post content there, and along with an image. I'll just very quickly show you how to deliver it in a campaign. So click on Deliver in Campaign, select all your channels. Obviously, you can do email or social as a standalone campaign. The name of it is fine. That's just internal purposes. The change I'm going to make here is add in a hashtag FBT, and I'm going to also add the name of a fictional accounting firm called Huge Accounting, just using those hashtags for extra searchability by followers. I'm going to come down to the bottom and click on Continue. And at the next stage, you'll see we can view the social post across the different channels that we've got selected. You can see it's there. And if I click on the link, this would either take you through to the branded web page. Now, this is a page that we'll host on your behalf. Equally, if you want it to be hosted on your website, that's fine. You just need to put the content on your website as a blog and then share it from your website. So those are all the social posts. If I come down into email, you can see that we have the ability to send it either to everyone in your database, or I can filter using tags. So you can see all the tags that I've added to these test accounts. Obviously, you will have different segments in your own firm, and you'll know who to send it to. But once you have segmented it, if you want to, you can then come in to select a template. So you have the option to send out an email using a pre-created or pre-used template. And so this might have specific layouts and information that you want to sort of send out time and time again. I'm going to click on branded template in the middle, And this basically injects the article into different layouts that you can then send out to your email. And I'll click on full article. And because we've got the Wolters Kluwer premium content in Boma, you don't have to ever cut and paste. The content is basically always there and is injected into the email perfectly every time. So you can see here the image, title, as we see down, all the layouts are there for you. Now at this point, you might want to personalize it. So you might want to add a welcome. I'll write dear, I'll put in a merge tag, and the merge tag will basically address the email to each person in your database. So dear Charles, dear Navneet, and so on. Now at the bottom, you can obviously do a sign off. We do have a call to action here. You would sign it off in the way that is most comfortable for you. And I'd always recommend putting in a button call to action. So in this case, I'm going to say, contact us, and then you can either send them to a website page. So it might be a booking page on your website, or maybe it's where you have a case study about FBT or sort of services. Equally, you could have it send yourself an email automatically, or make a call, or even send an SMS. Now, all the content in here you can customize yourself. Again, that's one of the great things with the content in Boma, is that you can make it as unique as you want to. For example, you might have an example you want to put in, or maybe you just like to add a little bit of personal touch to the introduction or closing sections. Once you're ready to send it, press save and close. You'll notice here that we've actually created the subject line for you. Again, you can change or optimize those if you wish. I will just click into Facebook. It's got the little warning sign there. That's just for us to paste the content into the Facebook page. And that is just a quirk of Facebook. They don't allow us to pre-fill posts on your behalf. Okay, we're now ready to send out this multi-channel campaign, so social and email. Let's click schedule. And obviously this is appearing in my time zone. You can, if you want, set it up to go out tomorrow or the following week. For now, I'll just send it out immediately and go back to the dashboard. So look, that's all we'll sort of share about Boma and how that works. I will actually now go back into the presentation. If you do have any questions, please do take a moment to put them into the Q&A box for Navneet. We are obviously incredibly fortunate to have her here, so don't let the opportunity to ask her some questions go to waste. Now, in terms of how you could access Boma and Wolters Kluwer, for Boma, you can trial for free for 14 days. Onboarding and training for your entire team is included, and it starts from $89 per month. In terms of getting Wolters Kluwer, you can, if you're not a customer, recommend you go to the URL that we've detailed on this page, and don't worry, we'll send out more information with the webinar recording tomorrow. If you are a Wolters Kluwer customer, but maybe of a different product, speak to your solutions manager about adding the CCHIQ content to your subscription. Now, if you happen to be a Boma subscriber already, but are wanting to get this Wolters Kluwer premium content in your Boma account, there are two ways to do it. So if you are already or if you're also a Wolters Kluwer CCHIQ subscriber, it's actually free for you to add to your Boma account. So if you can reach out to your solutions manager, they will give you a coupon code, and that will actually unlock the library in your Boma account. No, if you're not a Wolters Kluwer customer, that's not an issue. Just get in touch with us via the support page. Ask us to switch on the premium content for you, and we can add it to your account for $40 per month. So a really good deal, whichever way you choose to do it. Navneet, just while we see if there are any questions come through, is there anything else you wanted to let our viewers know about before we sign off?
As an afterthought, I was hoping that someone would ask this question, but I'll just mention this anyway. For reportable fringe benefits, for the RFB amounts, there is some emphasis on, I would like to highlight here, if a reportable fringe benefit amount is for an employee salary sacrifice, the contributions that have been made under an effective salary sacrifice arrangement and then are paid into a compliant super fund don't need to be reported as an RFBA. So remember when I talked about correctly reporting the RFBA amounts, if there's an arrangement of an employee salary sacrifice and the contributions have been made to an effective, the effective salary sacrifice contributions have been made to a compliant super fund, those amounts don't need to be reported. Oh, there's another question, Charles, I think.
Oh yeah, so the article on Boma from FBT is a paid one from Wolters Kluwer and only available for subscribers. Okay, so there are two types of Wolters Kluwer content in the Boma platform. There is some free freemium content, and so that is available to everyone actually within who is a Boma subscriber. And I'll actually just share screen again, and I can quickly show you exactly what I mean. So, okay, here we are, and I'll go back into the content library. And this time I'm going to get rid of our search parameters and I'm going to click on the other partner library. So you can see here that we do have obviously content from the likes of Traderify, Spotlight, and Wolters Kluwer in this case. And so there is some really good content from Wolters Kluwer in here. Obviously this one is looking at lodgement of TPAR. Now, where there is really specific technical content, yes, to answer your question, that is in the premium library, and that is only available if you are either a Wolters Kluwer customer and have put the unlock code into the Boma content library, or B, you are not a Wolters Kluwer customer, but you have asked us to switch on this library for you, and that adds $40 Australian to your account every month. Now, in terms of how often the content is updated, actually, Navneet, it might be worth you just talking about how you update it and when you update it, because it's not just the case of, you know, new updates every week. You also go back and update content where things have changed or evolved.
Yep, for sure, Charles. So this is a combination of all the tax technical stuff, plus any reminders or updates that come, any legislation changes that come as the year progresses. So on your screen, you can see the electric vehicles article and how it says the guidance has been finalized. So I started this article off as a draft PCG and what the draft PCG had for taxpayers to look at and observe. And then after the consultation process, when the finalized PCG was released in February, a few minor changes were included in that finalized PCG, which is, like I discussed, the plug-in hybrids have been excluded from the shortcut method. So I endeavor to include those updates, or Wolters Kluwer as a team, we endeavor to include those updates as soon as they come in. So we do at least 4 updates on new articles, at least for a month, and any more updates that come in, we just go update as we go. So it's very, very live and very up to date, and it's good piece of information that you then can pass on to your client base, to your customers, and yeah, delivering campaign like Charles just showed us.
Brilliant. Well, look, unless anyone else has any questions, I'm just conscious of time. I think we will leave it there. So again, thank you so much for joining us, everyone. We will be sending out the recording tomorrow. At that point, if you have any specific FBT questions and you'd like to learn more, feel free to respond to that email. But it just leads me to thank Navneet so much for letting us have the benefit of your wisdom. Thank you, Navneet.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure.
Thanks, everyone. See you next time.